Welcome to a special summer bonus episode of the Food Professor Podcast, recorded live in our on-site podcasting studio at the SIAL Food Innovation Show in Toronto.
Over 3 great days in May, Sylvain and I met dozens of food innovators and thought leaders. These are their stories.
I'm sure you will enjoy hearing these incredible interviews as much as we enjoy hosting the conversations. Stay tuned for Season 4 of the Food Professor Podcast, Canada's top food industry and Canadian-produced independent management podcast, when we return live on the mic Thursday, September 21st.
Well, we're back at SIAL Live, and we have 2 distinguished guests joining us today. We have Linda Fox from the Canadian Food Innovation Network. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you.
But we also have a returning guest, Isabelle Marquis, who is, I guess now, Sustainability Ambassador at SIAL. A dedicated participant at SIAL. You've been involved with SIAL for many years.
Almost 15 years.
15 years, wow.
Yeah.
So let's start with you, Isabelle. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So, you're back. We're back at SIAL. So what are your thoughts about SIAL this year? What are you doing? What you've been up to? You've been talking to a lot of people. What are you hearing?
Well, first of all, I had the pleasure to be part of the jury of the SIAL Innovation Contest again this year. So that was my first mandate to concentrate on that. Great candidates this year. An assortment of products that was much more interesting, I would say, than in the past years. Greater variety of products. Overall, to be very frank, I haven't had the opportunity yet to walk the whole show. But from what I've seen, and I don't know for you, Linda, but health and health claims in general are everywhere.
More so than past years?
Well, in the speech or conversations I had with almost every company here, health was part of the arguments or the claims that they were making from the start when they were presenting their products. So health is one, and the notion of authenticity. I walked a lot in the international section to try to discover things that I don't know. And that notion of the real recipes, the real stuff, that was on everyone's lips also.
Wow.
Absolutely.
What about you, Linda? You've been here for a few days now. What are your thoughts about SIAL?
Yeah, I also haven't had a chance to see the whole show. It's enormous, as you know. We had an employee with CFIN who is new to Canada and new to our company come and join us.
Okay. And who's that?
Rajiv is his name. He works in our IT department.
IT?
And it was so interesting to see, the saucer eyes when he saw the size of the show and the number of things going on here. But I concur. Health comes up a lot, not just personal health, but also health of the planet. We're seeing an awful lot of that. And I had the pleasure of doing a panel on how does a brand react to change in this environment, and authenticity was the core of what everyone was talking about. So it's interesting to see it reflected by the people who are demonstrating at their booths and so on here.
How do you two reflect on what seems to be an occasional paradox where consumers talk a lot or talk a big game of sustainability and all these things, but they behave sometimes very, very different? I see it in other categories, where they're talking about sustainability. I really want to know the company's ethics, yet they're shopping for companies that have no ethics and are terrible for the planet and making them free. How do we reconcile these two things? It's a question I often ask. What do you think, Isabelle?
Well, personally, first of all, I'm not surprised at all. And first and foremost, because just the notion and definition of sustainability is all but clear. I mean, everyone has a different perspective on it. So far, in the food industry, we talk about packaging, we talk a little bit about water, transportation a little bit, but besides that, it quite ends there. And I would say even in the head and in the speech of food companies, it's not clear. Everyone wants to do something. That's the good thing, or the good news. Yeah. But where to start? What efforts are truly valuable, which ones are not really. There's a lot of confusion in there. So I guess until we clarify that and pick some specific angles or aspects of sustainability that really or truly makes a difference and we can demonstrate that, I don't think on either side, companies and consumers will be able to go or to move forward I'd say more seriously or to amplify that
in
movement.
a committed way.
In a committed way, yes, thanks.
Yeah. I mean, Linda, when I think of I think of this spectrum of there's some very bad things that happen in the food industry around the world. Even in down south, we're seeing 12, 13-year-olds working in meatpacking processing plants. Child labor now suddenly on the agenda. Okay, that's one end of the spectrum. The other is, what are the things that I do to make my product genuinely, as Isabelle was saying, sustainable and what's valued? What's your perspective on, do you start at packaging and move upwards? And how do you tackle such a big thing? And where do you start? What's your advice?
And that's really it. It is such a big thing. And if you try to take it all on, we're just all going to sit here paralyzed like deer in the headlights, right? You can't possibly do that. Do something, right? Do something that is authentic to your brand. If it's a different type of packaging, if it's calling out what you do behind the scenes on your packaging, that can be very helpful. I was kind of smiling when you said this paradox of we want to do something, but then we don't. Yes, of course I'm going to the gym 3 times a week is what I'm going to tell the guy who phones on the pole. But I'm really not. And it's not dissimilar with this. We all desire to do the right thing, but it has to be easy for the consumer. So if you're going to ask them to pay 50% more, it becomes a less interesting thing to do at the grocery shelf, right? Will they pay more? I think they will, and depending on whether you have the ability to pay more. In a past life, we looked at MSC certification on fishing, right? Yes, we'll pay more. 10%? Do that. 12%? We're getting the maybes. You go above that, it's probably not going to happen.
You're in the danger zone. I mean, so you and I have talked about that in the podcast, right? I mean, organic is a very good example over the decades. I think to some degree the industry is its own worst enemy. Everything suddenly is organic, but then nothing is. Do you think about that sometimes, and how do you reflect on that?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, I'm a big fan of demand fragmentation because it leads to more innovation. But the one question I've been asking myself a lot in recent years, and I'd like to ask both of you the same question, is we often say that industry is ahead of policy. And for the last, I'd say 30 years, it's been like that. But in recent years, because of some of the major challenges we're facing, climate change, labor, it seems as though to me that policy is really pushing innovation a lot more of late. The front of package labeling one is certainly top of mind to me when it comes to informing the consumer. That's policy, forcing change. Yep. What are your thoughts on that, both of you, Linda and Isabelle?
Well, if I bring your question back on the topic of sustainability, I personally think that, I wish policy would be stronger and we would be up to date. But frankly, I hope food companies won't wait for governments to establish definitions and boundaries around sustainability and notably regenerative agriculture. And that's something I was chatting with my panel yesterday, giving the example of McCain, for example, that decided, we can't afford to wait for government to decide for us in which direction we need to go. So we don't know exactly what the answer is. We don't know exactly what the perfect path is. But, let's give it a try. Let's start. Let's do something in one direction. Let's test. Let's measure and readjust if we need to. I think if we really want to see improvement and I'll give my very personal opinion on this, but if we don't do this, we're dead. That's it. And UN said it recently, I think it was in 2019, if we don't change the way we grow food right now, we have less than 60 harvests left. So that means in less than 60 years, that's it. No more food on Earth. Is that what we want?
It's going to be a problem.
Well, obviously
compelling.
It's a huge thing. So we got to do something. Again, hopefully policy will help, but let's not wait for policy to help.
Linda?
Yeah, I think like so many things, perception makes it difficult, right? with CFIN, I don't rate or rank or grade any of the applications that come in for funds, but I get the opportunity to do that with other organizations that have government funds. And it's often a bit disheartening to me when I hear the conversations that go something like, well, it's so early on, and if we give them money for this now, nothing's going to happen, and it'll only affect 0.5%. And I'm like, but they're doing something.
Exactly.
Right? Let's not think about how that's...
And you want to encourage them.
Yes.
You want to support them.
Yeah, and they're not going to get to that bigger impact if we don't support... And often it's money that's required. There's a lot of big bulbous brains out there. I mean, every day I'm getting an education from other Canadians that are doing such smart things. But let's not necessarily worry that, is my funder going to, think that this is enough. Let's get people out there doing things and moving it ahead to the next step. And back to authenticity, something that makes sense for what your business is.
Absolutely.
So, question for the both of you, what's next? We're here at SIAL. It's a busy time. It's kind of a culmination, I'm sure, of a fair bit of work and a lot of work. But outside of the world of SIAL, what's next?
Well, Isabelle's going on vacation for 6 months now.
I wish.
Okay, once you get back, what's next? What's your life after SIAL?
Well, a lot going on. I'm actually, it's funny that I've been asked to be sustainability ambassador for SIAL because sustainability is a topic that I've been diving into for the past 2 years or so. On a personal level forever, but on a professional level, it's quite new. And the more I dive into this, the more I'm excited, the more hope, the more... I have just so many ideas. So I'm planning to get involved more and more in with some organizations that do put in place some projects and collaboration between all the players. So farmers, manufacturers, distributors to make things happen. So that's
great.
Next
So tell the people how to get in touch with you and what's drop some. So are you a LinkedIn person? What's the best way to get in touch?
LinkedIn is definitely the best way to get in touch with me.
It is the best way to reach Isabelle.
All right.
Yeah,
right.
for sure.
Linda, what's next? I mean, CFIN's a pretty very busy organization, but talk about what's next after SIAL, post SIAL.
So personally, next with CFIN, a large part of my job, because we are a funding network and we're also a network, obviously, is connecting people together. And I spent a few days in Ottawa a couple of weeks ago with some of our members, and it's so interesting to me now that we're back out in person, how many more connections get made when you sit and have a conversation like this. I was at a press conference, one of our members, Food Cycle Science, who has the most interesting project going on that we funded around bioplastics actually being biodegradable and turned into compost in like 24 hours.
I like the fact that you said the word actually.
Actually, because it's so dangerous, actually, when this stuff doesn't get composted
That's
properly.
right.
So again, they're doing some amazing work. Well, aren't I standing at this press conference and they say, are you heading home? I said, well, yeah, first I have to pop over and see another one of our members, and they have this dispensing system for food that, is so much more, takes care of food waste. It's well, we need a dispensing system for that. Well, why connect the two of you together? Now, that wouldn't have happened on a Zoom call, right?
That's right.
So getting out there and spending time with our membership to get those connections solidified is going to be a big part of what I'm up to next.
That's great.
All right. Well, listen, thanks to both of you for joining us on the podcast. And it's a busy day, and we wish you much continued success. And do we know how to get in touch with you, Linda? I don't think you... Are you a LinkedIn person as well?
LinkedIn is probably the best.
Okay.
Linda at CFIN -rcia.ca is my email. And
Great.
That's also an easy way.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you both for joining us here at SIAL in the podcast studio, and wish you safe travels, because it sounds like you're both going to be on the road meeting people, and continued success to both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Take care.
If you like what you heard, please follow us on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform so you can catch up with all our great interviews, including celebrity chef, restaurateur, and entrepreneur, Chuck Hughes. These summer SIAL bonus episodes of the show will be released every Thursday, and be sure to tell all your friends and colleagues in the food service, grocery, and restaurant industry all about us.
I'm Sylvain Charlebois, the food professor, author of 8 books, and senior director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University.
And I'm Michael LeBlanc, consumer retail growth consultant, keynote speaker, and producer and host of a series of retail trade podcasts, including this one. You can learn more about me on LinkedIn. Have a safe summer, everyone.
Bon été tout le monde.